roads forgotten by the map, there are signs we pretend not to see. Cloths on fence posts, marked bricks, ruins that breathe, not a threat, a reminder. The path asks for lightness and charges when we arrive heavy. The cloth on the fence post. I, Giulio, knew every curve of the dirt road leading to Celino's farm. I delivered tiles, nails, bags of cement. Routine taught my hands to drive in the dark without thinking. At the beginning of winter, I noticed a white rag tied to the fence post of the loneliest stretch. It was a simple cloth, torn in the middle, as if someone had tested its strength with their hands. No house nearby, only tall grass, long puddles, the smell of still water. On the first night, the cloth moved with no wind. Not a big scare. A slow turn, half a knot that rebuilt itself in the same place. I touched my knuckles to the post, like asking for silent permission, and moved on. At the workshop, I mentioned it shyly. Celino, a man of few words, held my arm firmly. He said that marked an old cattle shortcut, swallowed when the new road cut across the marsh. People stayed there, without cross, without prayer. Since then, someone ties a cloth to remind you to pass asking for permission, not pushing with haste. On the second night, it rained. I stopped the truck to adjust the tarp. The headlights made the grass glitter. The cloth was soaked and still it spun. A half turn, insistent, as if demanding attention. I thought aloud, just for myself. I'll drive slowly. The air opened space, easing the weight on my chest, like leaving a stifling room. In the rearview mirror, the grass all leaned in the same direction, drawing a corridor. It felt like something delayed was passing there, demanding priority. I returned the next day to see if someone had replaced the cloth. It was the same one, now with its edge darkened, stained by old water. On the third night, my sister Aline came with me. City life builds certainties and short laughter. I told her about the cloth. She smiled crooked and asked to film it. She got out, pointed her phone. The rag unwound and pointed toward the marsh. It didn't look like wind. It looked like a gesture. Aline froze. Later, she told me she smelled old mud and felt an urge to wash her hands without reason. From the glove compartment, I took a piece of ribbon left from a binding. I left it beside the cloth in a simple knot. We didn't make a promise. We just marked that we understood. We drove a few more meters. The silence grew thick. No crickets, no pebbles crunching under the tires. The headlights caught a shine in the water, as if a metal hoop was half buried. The water drew a curve on its own and stopped. It was like seeing an unseen path give up on a shortcut. Elaine cried without tears. I whispered that we were only passing through, not touching anything. At home, I dreamed of an ox walking in circles on flattened ground, as if the earth held tracks the eye can't learn. I returned to thank Celino, brought coffee and sweetbread. He listened with his head down, said that when they built the new road, they pushed its routes over what was already there. They told no one, gave no words back to the ground. The cloth on the fence posts became a cheap reminder and a simple order. Outsiders must ask passage. Those who film, measure, prove, draw attention from what walks along the edges. His advice was small and firm. Always carry a ribbon. Don't offer anything, don't promise anything. Just show you understood that history lives there. Since then, I began carrying rope, ribbon, and time. I stopped cutting through on heavy rain days, adjusted my headlights not to blind the marsh, learned to park 2 meters before the fence post, touched the wood with my knuckles, breathed, drove on. It never failed. The road seemed to accept me.
When I forgot this routine, it was on a weekend festival. Too much music, too much noise. I came back late, head hot. I crossed the fence post without stopping. The cloth, quiet for days, followed me in the rearview mirror, as if every post had its own cloth pointing a backwards path. I felt the steering wheel pull toward the marsh. I held tight, stopped further ahead, heart pounding in my throat. Walked back, rested my fist on the wood, asked for a passage without sound. The cloth stopped. The air settled. Another time, I found new marks on the ground. Someone had left worn candles and 2 empty bottles of cachaça at the foot of the fence post. Alongside, a bag with food scraps. Looked like a botched ritual. I removed the trash, threw it far away, left the cloth where it was, didn't touch the knot. The next morning, Celino commented that when we use a place as a shortcut for guilt, the place responds with weight in return. I agreed in practice. The body understands first. The chest eases when we fix what was messed. Aline stopped filming, returned to her world, but she texts me when it rains. Asks me not to force the passage. I reply, I'll go slowly. She says her dreams of grass leaning gently, as if someone passed through the same corridor. I don't argue. Her dream matches mine. A month later, the town hall sent a machine to fix a hole further up the road. No one touched the fence post. Those who drive tractors here know the story without books. The operator stopped, looked, nodded, and turned around. No one arranged it. Everyone learned the same rule. What holds the road is not asphalt. It's the agreement. Today, when I say the road accepts us, I don't say it out of faith. I say it out of practice. The cloth is still there, sometimes replaced by another. I don't ask who changes it. I pass slowly, touch with my fingers, move on. And I carry with me a simple certainty. Some roads remember those who never left and expect you to remember too. Respect is the payment the road understands. It's little, it's everything.
The Sugarcane Tower. It wasn't longing that took me back. It was work. I, Martha, agreed to catalog ruins for the town's inventory. I listed an old bridge, a cracked fountain, a mud wall house with an open wall. The mill tower went on the spreadsheet as cylindrical structure, exposed brick, accessible interior. It was a number and an empty field. I had no intention of stirring memory. The road to the village seemed to have shrunk. Deep holes, crooked fences, tamarind trees holding thin shade. I stopped at the store to ask for water. Donna Nelly was adjusting a blue scarf and stacking bags of salt. I asked about the tower. She answered without looking at me that no one climbs it anymore. Not out of fear, but out of weariness. Drought drains desire, she said, in a tone of someone who had seen everything pass. I wrote the phrase in my notebook, not for poetry, but to remind myself to keep quiet. My grandmother's house was empty, and I used it as a base. Roof with a makeshift skylight, cold floor, stains on the walls where old photos hung until they peeled off. At night, the village shrank more. The silence wasn't complete. It had the background of stagnant water, of cane cut too long ago. I hadn't planned to climb the tower. My body asked for it. I carried a flashlight, dust mask, notebook. The inner staircase was narrow. Each step answered my weight with a different sound. I marked them in my head like taking inventory. First step, dry, sharp. Second, full, deep. Third, tired wood. At the top,
The circular room gave what the old photos promised: a tall emptiness, a piece of old rope cutting through shadow, a narrow window pointing at the forest devouring the dirt road. The air smelled of burnt sweetness, memory of molasses. I put my hand on the plaster. Fine dust came off. Took the first technical photo. Wanted to go down. Didn't. On the parapet, someone had left dry leaves tied with red ribbon. A name written on paper. Lydia, my aunt. Teenage, gone in the deepest cane fields. Never found. The ribbon was new. The name was old. I touched it with my fingertip and felt cold. Not air cold, forgotten metal cold. That wasn't a warning. It was a plea. Don't let the name wash away. I went down. At the base, I found Selfermino sitting on a stone, hat in his lap. He recognized me by my last name. Spoke slowly, saying the tower once served promises never kept. People promised to watch workers, count the missing, mark arrivals. Time passed. Sugar left. Cane stayed. Promises stuck to the brick, turned into weight. I returned the next day with brush, cloth, bigger notebook. Cleaned metal plates without seeking shine. I only wanted letters, dates, initials. Out came cracked names, knife marks, scratches from people wanting to leave proof. I resisted the urge to build an altar. Changed the murky water of a forgotten glass for clean water, then emptied it again to avoid mosquitoes. Swept steps, retied the leaves so they wouldn't fly with any foolish wind. Wrote everything in the notebook. Made no request. At the store, I showed the notebook. Donna Nelly flipped through it like wiping a counter. Uniform, calm. She said it was good to put names back in everyone's mouth. She didn't say masses, candles, fulfill promises. She said, remember out loud. I left the notebook there with her. She asked me to return in 15 days to add more names. I accepted. That night, I didn't sleep well. The empty house seemed to breathe. It wasn't haunting. It was relief. When someone does the bare minimum right, the space gives in a little. I dreamed of the cane fields drawing streets back, opening narrow corridors where you pass without scratching. I woke with the light head and a simple plan. I began gathering short stories from anyone willing to talk. Selfermino brought 2 forgotten dates. A bicycle repairman said the tower is a meeting point for silence, not prayer. A woman told of a brother who vanished in a cane field now closed with brush. I noted without flourish, put it in the notebook, 1 line for each person, and kept the same cleaning routine. Scrub, sweep, remove remains of glasses and candles, reinforce leaf knots. No altar, no promise, just order. One day I found a plastic envelope with a wet note. It had a name and a recent date. No request, no cure. Maybe someone tried to ease their weight by throwing responsibility onto the tower. I removed the paper, dried it, copied it to the notebook, returned the original inside an old book at the store so it wouldn't become trash. The tower doesn't want to be a dump for guilt. It wants inventory. It wants record. It wants the dignity of a full name. After 2 weeks, the list of names passed 20. I didn't post anything online, didn't call City Hall. The official inventory stayed cold with measurements and photos. The true inventory stayed in the hands of those who speak softly. The tower remained crooked. The village remained small. The weight on the chest shifted. Instead of falling on those still waiting for a miracle, it settled on the brick, as it should. Not to crush, to anchor. When I left, I gave the key of my grandmother's house to Donna Nelly, not out of detachment, out of understanding, function. I had entered to catalog ruins. I left with the task of lining up memory. No return, No metal, no pretty view. It gives order, and order here is what we can offer without lying. Not every memory needs to make noise. Some only ask for a clean table, name spoken, open notebook. The tower doesn't demand faith, it demands care. The rest, time decides.
The Sunken Chapel. Jonas inherited a shack and a trail. His uncle's note was dry. Keep it clean up to the chapel. The chapel stood half outside, half inside the water at the edge of a reservoir that had opened a new mouth during an old flood. Jonas wasn't a praying man. He was about completing a task without talk. He put the paper in his pocket, grabbed hoe, machete, a pair of gloves, went. The trail entered the forest as if asking permission, narrow between vines. The ground alternated mud and roots. At the sharpest bend, the boot sank up to the ankle. Jonas pulled, felt the vacuum holding the sole, breathed deep. The ruin appeared in parts, an arch covered in moss, window without glass, brick exposed, iron cross leaning at the top. The reservoir's water had the green of a forgotten container. Nothing there asked for miracle, it asked for care. On the first day, Jonas removed fallen branches, unstuck chunks of trunk, opened grooves for water to find the low ground, stopped before effort turned to anger. On the way back, he realized the forest had its own rhythm, like slow breathing. He didn't confront, bowed his head, and passed. On the second day, fine rain seeped into his clothes. At the entrance of the trail, someone had tied 3 ribbons to a branch, white, black, and red. They hadn't been there before. Jonas touched the red. Smell of candle just blown out. He remembered Raimundo's advice, the vine cutter from the district. Respect and haste, no talk with shadow. He moved on. At the reservoir's edge, he saw a spent candle, a glass with murky water, and a plastic bag with paper inside, swollen with dampness. He pulled the paper out carefully. It had a name and a recent date, nothing more. No request, no quick-fix phrase. He understood simply. Someone had tried to use the chapel as a shortcut to unload guilt. He threw the old water away, washed the glass in the rain, put it back empty, removed the candle for disposal, made no request, cleaned the step, cleared leaves from the door, placed the note in a notebook, wrote the date, the name, the condition of the place. The living spreadsheet began there, direct lines without ornament. On the third day, the reservoir mirrored calm. Fresh tire tracks cut the dry mud. Paired footprints led to the chapel. On the step, coarse salt scattered carelessly, breadcrumbs, a string tied around the leaning cross. Tying tired iron doesn't straighten the past. Jonas breathed deep and decided the inheritance wasn't a charge. It was a shift of work. He straightened what he could, raised a fallen stone, swept the threshold, opened a narrow ditch to drain a puddle, rested the loose rope on the hook without pulling, left everything quiet. Raimundo showed up later, leaning on a trunk, hat on his knee, spoke little, said a place used as a quick answer grows heavy.
Said when we organize a path without tricks, the place organizes us. Jonas nodded. His body understood before his head. That night he slept well for the first time in months. In the following days, Jonas kept the routine. Arrived early while shadows were still long. Checked if anyone had left trash or sloppy promises. Collected, took away, swept steps, checked the rope on the hook, checked the leaning cross, respecting its tilt as part of history, not a flaw. Left no standing water in glasses, built no altar, penned no new note, only recorded. The notebook filled pages, date, task done, ground condition, small remarks. One day, wilted flowers left on the threshold, removed by evening. Another, mud less deep after ditch, maintain. Another, no boat sounds, only big bird folding wings. When heavy rain came, the trail turned into a dark ribbon. Jonas almost gave up. Thought of his uncle, thought of the note, thought of how his chest had eased after the second day. Put on a plastic raincoat and went anyway. The water ran through the ditch he had dug. The puddle that trapped the boot at the curve lost strength. The mossy arch dripped more than usual, but didn't collapse. Small victories don't make noise. They matter. On some Saturday, he found 2 new candles and a plate with raw corn at the foot of the cross, beside a plastic envelope with 3 names, different dates, no request, no phrase. Jonas realized the chapel was turning into a dump for others' weight. He didn't fight anyone. Removed the candles, set aside for disposal. Cleaned the plate, wrote the names and the notebook, returned the dry envelope to the back of the store among old magazines. Told the shopkeeper not to throw it away unseen. The man nodded, asked nothing. Over time, the trail gained the face of a path. Not pretty, walkable. Jonas's body stopped expecting miracle, began to expect work. The reward came in the form of breath. At arrival, no tight chest. At leaving, no heavy head. Raimundo, when he saw him, let out a worth a whole talk. The place didn't demand faith. It demanded care. That was what could be given. At month's end, Jonas bound the notebook sheets with string, kept it in a plastic box, safe from damp, wrote on the lid, chapel, maintenance, names, dates. It wasn't altar, it was archive of respect. If someone needed to remember or explain, it was there. If no one needed, also. The place already had someone to look after it. Some places don't ask for prayer, they ask for order. When we stop dumping guilt on what remains gives us back a path. It's simple, it's slow, it works.